Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Brabber, and alongside me is Logan Camden. And today we have two very special guests with us. We are joined by Marz and Tyler of Hoop Venue for a very special occasion that really these two guys were the best possible guests we could have had on for. We're going to be doing an all-time NBA draft. So I am extremely excited to get into that. But before we do, gentlemen, how are we doing today?
You want to take it, Marz? Go ahead, man. How you doing? Marz?
I mean, I was meant to meet a potentially top 15 player of all time, and I didn't. So
right. So on a scale of 1 to 10, give us a number.
No, we like a 5. It was still good
right.
vibes. It was still good vibes. Just a decent day.
I'm doing pretty good, man. I am especially excited for today because I can't remember. I watched your episode. It was either the all defense or the all offense draft you guys did. And I commented, I was like, I need an invite for the all-time draft. So I'm especially excited now that we're here.
This is what I'm saying. I mean, you two are the guys who I think have the historic knowledge and passion that you're just the perfect fit. I mean, no glaze, but my favorite all-time basketball conversations take place with, of course, you, Logan. There's no need to get jealous. And you guys. So it only made sense that we would have you on for this. Logan, you are dripped out. You are ready to make your selections. You have the draft day fit on.
Yeah, you guys didn't get the memo.
I feel terribly underdressed.
David Stern won't deter me. No dress code.
We're all getting cooked right here, dude. We're just getting cooked.
We're definitely getting out dripped. You kind of look like Hitman when you throw a suit on.
Dude, that's a hell of a compliment.
Or
bro.
Pitbull, honestly, either one, because Pitbull wears a suit a lot.
Dude, I was in a hair shop the other day, bro, with my girlfriend, and
Why?
a woman stopped me and told me I look like John B.
You were in a hair shop of all places? What are you
Well,
doing?
I told her, I was like, I don't belong, obviously.
Yeah.
And then
You
I
gotta
asked to
place
see
that.
her extensive collection of wigs.
Ah,
Got you.
Try
So
any
did
on?
you land? Did you land on any?
yeah.
Evidently not. I'm still on the market. I'm still a free agent.
Got it.
Logan, we do need to get you a toupee. I think you would look just the balls in a toupee. So that's a project for going forward. Our project for today, though, is this all-time NBA draft. So here's the format. We're going 12 rounds. We're drafting a full roster. We are going to go in a snake order, so it's not a fixed draft. In other words, if you pick first in one round, you're picking last in the next. And we're going to determine that order right now. So I'm going to assign you guys numbers. Marz, you'll be 1. Tyler, you'll be 2. Logan, you'll be 3. I will be 4. And I'm going to randomly generate who gets the first pick right now. It is going to you, Logan. Congratulations.
Shit's
By
rigged.
the way,
Shit's
I could be
rigged.
rigging this. This could be total NBA lottery 1985 vibes. But the second pick is going to me. Okay, shout
Rigged.
out to Sesh.
Rigged.
I don't know if I want the second pick, but I've got it. Third pick is going to Marz, so the fourth
Let's
pick is
go.
going to Tyler, who gets the 4-5 turn, which is not a bad spot to be.
I get
Not a bad
two
spot
number
to
one
be.
picks essentially. This was the spot I wanted for sure.
Well, congratulations. Our rigging didn't work. You got exactly what you wanted. I will say we can go into like our draft philosophies if we want, but frankly, I don't want to give away too much. I don't want you guys stealing my ideas. Not that I think you will. I think what's going to be funny about this draft is we are probably all going to be targeting similar guys, if I had to guess. Like, I would love to see who gets to snag Steve Nash first between Marz and Tyler. I'm really excited for that battle within the war. But I will say, as an overarching point, we are drafting to build a cohesive team here. We are not stacking up, okay, all-time talents in a vacuum. We're trying to put together an actual functional best team that we can. Is there anything that any of you guys want to add just in terms of your mindset going in before we get started?
For me, it's like I was thinking about this morning as I was preparing for this, and where my head kept going was like you say the fit thing, like we're drafting for fit, and it's hard to like emphasize how important that is when we're stacking up a bunch of all-time great players.
Yep.
Like it's almost you're working backwards. Everyone kind of thinks, oh, talent. You have all these all-time greats, but like when you're and we probably won't reach this depth of player, but just to use an example, like. There's a certain point in roster building where you would rather have Robert Covington than Carmelo Anthony. That doesn't make him a better player. That doesn't mean he's the more talented player, but it's like at a certain point you're just drafting, you need guys to plug and play next to other superstars. And maybe that's a bad example, but just two players that I think of in terms of archetype. For me, it's all about flexibility and versatility, because I'm going to be thinking about this from a matchup perspective, and it's like, since we're all going to have so many all-time greats, pretty much the team with the biggest advantage is going to be the one with the least holes to poke at, in my opinion. So, for example, if I built a very heavy pick and roll offense, like my team relies on pick and roll, and I'm going up against one of you who drafted 5 wings who can all switch 1 through 5, it's like, well, now there goes my offense. So I need to have something else I can turn to. So that's kind of going to be my goal on both ends of the floor, is how many different lineups, schemes, and stuff can I go to?
Beautiful. Love it. Mars, anything you want to add?
Robert
Or you
Covington
wanna
was on
keep
my
it all?
boards. That's all.
No.
I'm saying. So that's it. But
I saw your face light up when I said that.
yeah, I was like, oh, okay, interesting. I've been found out.
I do think that's a great point. I think that's a great point. Finding the superstars who can do the role player stuff, so to speak, because you need to have those additive skill sets. You don't want to be redundant. We will get into the particulars of all that as we go. I will add a couple other points just in terms of sort of the outline for the draft. We're drafting based on peaks here. So we are not drafting a career. I'll use an example of a player like Bill Walton, who was only healthy for very few seasons, but has a 2-season peak that is very high. We're not ranking him as an all-time player considering the full scope of his career. We're considering his peak. I think that's kind of the only way you can really do an all-time draft, because you're picking the best version of that player, whatever that is by your estimation. And then I'll speak for myself. I think this is the general philosophy of the group here. Judging relative to era is the way that I evaluate all-time players. Now, there are going to be certain players who have more modern skill sets that maybe I do value in relation to the modern game, but I know just because there's always people who want to say every guy in the 60s is a plumber, and I know that, Marz, you're a Bill Russell GOAT truther, so the Bill Russells, the Jerry West, the Oscar Robinsons, etc., they will be respected on my board. I think that's kind of the only way to do an all-time draft like this. Without further ado, the number 1 overall pick goes to you, Logan Camden. Who do you want?
I have one question before we get started.
Okay.
Are we allowed, hypothetically, if I get deep into this draft and I don't like where I'm sitting at, could I trade a pick?
Ooh.
Like, if I'm sitting there in the 6th round and I want to say swap for somebody's 7th and 9th, are we allowed to do that?
And then
would
someone
we
just have
just add-
13 players?
So
yeah.
that's where I was going to go with that. You would kind of have to have an even, so it'd have to be like 7 and 9 versus 6 and
exactly.
12.
Or, yeah,
Exactly.
you'd get a compensatory pick, at the end or
Well,
something.
I think what you just have to do is, let's say, because Tyler is going to be drafting at the turn every time, but he's also going to have the biggest breaks between his picks. What if he wants to trade 4 and 5 for your 1 and 8? You can do that, but I think it has to be multiple picks for multiple picks, because otherwise you're just trading literally to move forwards or backwards. And trading multiple picks for one doesn't work because we want to have the same number of roster spots. So I think it has to be like a package deal. Next 2 rounds, we'll swap spots, basically. But I'll allow that. I think that's fine if you guys are all good with it.
Sure.
I'm down. It'll be hard to keep track of, but that's not my job. So
Logan loves a trade. Logan always trying to find the loopholes.
I'm not trading away this pick because I think it would be foolish. I'm going to take Michael Jordan, number 1 overall. I think he has the highest peak in basketball history. He is the greatest scorer to ever grace a basketball court. I think at his apex can be underrated as a playmaker, averaged 11 assists per game in the 1991 NBA Finals, is a really good defender, one of the best defensive playmaking guards of all time. And I think when you're looking at building a championship roster, I think you guys made a really good point. I want superstars that have versatility and malleability, and that may not be where Jordan hangs his hat, but that's because he's the greatest player of all time and the greatest scorer ever. And when I'm talking about raising the ultimate ceiling of a team, I think Jordan is the guy to go with here. So I'm thankful. I'm blessed. I got to think it's the lucky suit that got me to number 1 pick, and I'm very happy walking away with his airness.
Okay. I'm very happy to be walking away with LeBron James with the 2nd pick. And honestly, even though I think MJ has the highest peak in NBA history, I might have taken this version of LeBron just because I think there is so much flexibility that is allowed around him in terms of roster building. So I am going to take late Miami 2013, 2014 LeBron. To me, that's the best ceiling raising version, and that's the priority of this entire draft, as Tyler touched on. Who are the guys whose skill sets scale with great players alongside them? You could take a 2018 LeBron who is the best offensive version, but also more ball dominant. You're not getting nearly the same defensive value. So I want this peak LeBron defensively, unique strength. This was really when he maxed out that combination of elite strength with still that crazy explosive athleticism and quickness that he had in his younger years towards the end of his Cleveland stint and whatnot. Extremely versatile defensive player, super valuable secondary rim protector, but can guard the post at a high level, can switch out onto guards. And then offensively, I think this is such a refined and extremely efficient version of LeBron with a little bit of his development as a post player, just ridiculously effective finishing with that combination of first step and strength around the rim. I think this is overall the best LeBron ever was off ball because he also improved as a three-point shooter, shot 39% from deep over these 2 seasons. So it's his peak in terms of efficiency. I think it's his peak in terms of versatility, and it's LeBron James. I don't think there's any question that LeBron and MJ were in some order going to be the top 2 picks in this draft, and I'm thrilled. I'm really, really happy with LeBron here.
Yay.
So, Yay is right. The top 2 are obviously off the board. It's to you now, Marz, at 3. And now you've got a decision to make. Who do you want?
I think third is the hardest pick to make in this whole draft. It's like, where do you go for after Jordan and LeBron? Yeah. Which direction do you go in?
I'm going the Shaq direction.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going the Shaq direction. Two-way force, all-time great offensive player, can play on and off the ball, gravity through the roof, really good passer out the post, really good offensive rebounder. I've got some question marks, but I will address them in round 2. But I think he has the 3rd highest peak in NBA history. I could convince myself of second. I just think he's a monster, if I'm being honest. And I'm convinced none of you guys have anyone who can guard him.
Wait until I take Nate Thurman.
Well, not right now. I actually only have 1 player on my roster, so I guess we'll see later.
There's 11 spots, and I guarantee none of them will be able to guard Shaq.
I can guarantee you I don't have anyone who can guard Shaq. I don't have a player. But
True.
Shaq
you could
is who
suit
I
up as
wanted.
player coach. See what you
I
can do with
could,
Shaq.
and I could probably guard Shaq. I'm not going to lie. I especially
do believe in you. Yeah,
I'm hitting legs tonight, get the quads going, then I could guard Shaq easily. I'm locking that up. No, Shaq was going to be my first pick. I really wanted Shaq to fall to 4. There's like now the pressure's on me. There's like 8 different directions I can go in terms of back-to-back picks because now I'm building a duo. I got back-to-back picks here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep it simple. So I'm gonna take Steph Curry. I think that's maybe the easiest. Dare I say, I don't know if he's necessarily the easiest. Like Michael Jordan would probably be my pick for this, but like in terms of who I have left, this is just the super easy guy. Like every player after this is gonna fit with Steph Curry. No matter what. No, I could go to any archetype pretty much ever except for just another small guard shooter, and they're going to be able to play with Steph Curry in this all-time fashion. The off-ball game, the spacing, the gravity. This is like all-time pick-and-roll ball handler Steph Curry. I'm going for like 16, 17 era with the agility. Yeah, I feel good about Steph, and now I kind of just have to insulate him defensively and build the inside game. So my next pick's going to be Hakeem Olajuwon. We're going to go, that's my inside out game now, Hakeem and Steph. That's my pick and roll partner, Hakeem and Steph. And the main thing is I get Hakeem's defensive versatility because I get one of the best rim protectors of all time, one of the better rebounders of all time, one of the greatest like defensive playmakers of all time, but also someone who can switch across the board and execute every single pick and roll coverage. So I feel good. I feel good about the little two-way duo I've got going here with Steph and Hakeem.
It's back to you, Marz.
There's low-hanging fruit when you have Shaq, and I'm not going to take it. I'm taking Kevin Garnett. Shaq has some motor issues defensively, so I need to supplement that with the highest motor in NBA history. KG is, in my opinion, the most versatile power forward to play the game. Can play on and off ball, can shoot the mid-range, can pass at an extremely high level, can play on the perimeter, can play on the post. High-low action with Shaq is going to be amazing. Like I said, his defensive motor, his ability to play any coverage, similar to Hakeem, while being, in my opinion, more switchable, more versatile defensively. Very good protecting the rim. I've seen him guard literally 1 through 5. So any weaknesses I think Shaq may have defensively, I think will be supplemented by Kevin Garnett. And then any of KG's weaknesses, I think he has offensively in terms of his ability to physically impose himself, his ability to manufacture easy shots for himself. I have the person who generates more easy shots for himself than anyone in NBA history. So yeah, I decided to go with my front court. So I got KG and Shaq.
KG to me was one of the most interesting players in this draft, and I really did want him just because there is such an abundance of all-time great centers. Like, it's legitimately ridiculous if you stack it up against any other position, which is why I think that Akeem and Shaq both had top 5 peaks of all time. You guys both took them in the top 5. I might wait a little bit more for my center pick just because I think there is so much talent that you can wait a little bit without seeing a significant drop-off. But the power forward position is very different from that. Guys who like actually work alongside a number of those all-time great centers. And KG, even though he's not bringing you 3-point shooting, he is bringing you so much offensive versatility with the mid-range game, with the playmaking, and then defensively, obviously, can do literally everything under the sun. So I think that's a really nice pick. That super effective, versatile power forward is a very rare building block in this draft, and I think that you got the best version of it, Marz. So props to you for that. Definitely going heavy in the front court early. I'm going to go heavy on the wings. I'm going to invest in my forwards early. I'm taking Larry Bird here. And you talk about wanting to be matchup proof and wanting to be super versatile, Tyler, and I think that's a priority for me as well. And Larry obviously does not have one of the higher defensive peaks that we will draft today, but he still did find his ways to bring positive defensive value just with his phenomenal hands defensively, being an elite defensive rebounder, being even at his peak from like 84 to 87, a solid secondary rim protector who could give you like 2 steals and a block per game. So I do feel like he can be a functional part of this absolute monstrous defense that I want to build. And then offensively, he's up there for the best plug-and-play guy ever. Like, obviously, Steph, it's incredible, his versatility and his ability to make everybody alongside him better and never be somebody who's stepping on toes. But Larry, just with his incredible off-ball value, his elite jump shooting and his ability to utilize that in so many different ways. If it's posting up, if it's off movement, if it's out of isolation, his instincts as an off-ball mover, and then just like that all-time passing feel. Larry Bird is the greatest connective passer in NBA history, I would say. His ability to make those touch passes, his ability to make those reads in transition with hit-aheads and outlets and do everything. I mean, spot cutters out of the post, run pick and roll for you, and he's just so crafty. He's so deceptive. I mean, these 4 seasons, 84 to 87, he was 27, 10, and 7 on plus 4% relative true shooting in the regular season and the playoffs. I just think he scales so well. Maybe if I can, I'll tinker with his 3-point volume a little bit and ramp that up a little just to fit with this roster, but I feel great about getting Larry here at the 7th pick.
I'm devastated. Larry was who I was going to take with my next pick. Well, I mean, you said it, dude. I think he's one of the easiest guys to put in any situation alongside superstars. So when you think about the ideal running mate, it's Larry. I mean, you go back and watch his stuff, dude. The stuff he's doing off ball is so beautiful because it works so seamlessly with anybody. Like, it's something that you really can't guard against. And then the connective playmaking. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Bird was 3rd on my board. I was getting aroused over here at the idea that I might be able to snake MJ and Bird. Unfortunately, those dreams will not be a reality. But I'm going to be very happy with who I'm getting here. With my 8th pick, I'm going to take Tim Duncan. And Tim might not be the sexiest pick, but we're talking about doing all the little things. Tim's going to protect the hell out of the rim at a high level. He's going to rebound at a really high level. And he's got an underrated offensive peak. Obviously, most of his value is coming from what he did defensively, but he's a guy who could give you 25 a night if he needed to, working on the low block. So there might be some modern-day spacing issues, this and that, but I think Tim gives me, one, a little bit of versatility with where I want to go in the rest of my draft if I need to play him at the 4 or the 5, and a little bit of lineup versatility depending on where the rest that I go. But he can play the 4, and he's going to give me great value there. And I've got the turnaround pick here, right?
Yep, you do.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get Larry Bird, but I will take somebody who I'm going to be pretty happy with, and I'm going to take prime Kevin Durant here. And we're talking about, doing the little connective stuff, the being able to fit in off ball, and KD's going to do all of that, floor spacing. But I don't want to forget, prime Kevin Durant is a ridiculous athlete, is going to be able to get to the rim at ease, is going to be able to pressure the hell out of the defense. And I am a little bit conflicted with this trade-off because it's like if I went with an older, more polished version of KD, I could get a guy who's a better playmaker and a little bit better defender, but I really value his athleticism at his peak and his scoring peak back in 2014. So I'm going to take prime KD here. He's not 100% of Larry. I feel like I'd be getting a better rebounder, playmaker, and defender, but I'm really happy to get KD here. Yeah, I feel like he's one of those guys that you take and he would fit in with anybody.
Yeah.
I'm really unhappy. Really.
I know, like when Kevin Durant got picked, all of us were just like, damn,
Yeah.
like that's one of those
I
guys.
was praying he was gonna make it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so easy. So
I
easy
was
to play with.
I was considering taking him at 7 because I think he and Larry are those two guys at the forward spot who I look at and I think like they're the greatest plug and play superstars ever. Offensively, just literally work anywhere. What version of KD do you want, Logan? I'm just curious. Like, do you want
I'm gonna take
2014 or do you
MVP.
want?
I'm going to take
Okay.
MVP KD.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that's the best he ever was. I do think you look at what he did with the Warriors from 2017 and 2019, though, and that's like maybe the best a superstar has acquiesced to a situation. Just how great he was off ball, how hyper efficient he was, buying into that role defensively as more of a rim protector. So I think there's a case building this specific team that's the version of KD that you would want. But now I've got a dilemma on my hands here, man, because I was considering still taking KD, even though I already have a couple of forwards, just because he's that good and he's that versatile. I think I'm going to take Kobe Bryant here. And I think that there are a couple of players who definitely peaked higher than Kobe who are left, but I'm going to continue to think about positional value. I'm pretty confident that Tyler and Marz are not going to take a center before I get back to my next pick, and there's two centers who I would be equally thrilled basically to
Stop
get.
giving the sauce away, man. You giving away the draft plan.
Well, I'm entertaining the people, bro. They already took their centers. Now I'm going to wait for mine.
There's 12 roster spots here, buddy.
Yeah, are you just going to keep taking centers? Because if you do, it could be a good defense
Ash
offense.
Kareem
I've watched
Yeah.
enough Houston Rockets games to know that, hey, rebounds
Double big
win
look.
a lot of games.
The Shaq Bill Russell double big look would be crazy. With KG at the 3.
Yep.
I'm taking Kobe here just because I think he is an extremely versatile offensive player as well. I think that's a priority for me in this draft. I think he's one of the greatest off-ball scorers that we've ever seen. The decision I have to make here is actually which version of Kobe do I want, because I think that Kobe peaked in 2006. I think that's when he reached his like absolute best level of offensive mastery. But I also think earlier in his career, if you look at the early 2000s, he was a more dynamic defensive player, considerably more dynamic, and maybe that's the priority. But I just think I'll take that more complete offensive version, especially just with like the increased three-point volume and efficiency once you get to the mid-2000s. That's really important to me, the mastery of the post game by that stage of his career. So I'm getting a guy who I do feel like pretty much fits alongside a bunch of different offensive players because of that off-ball value, and is just one of the most skilled, complete, creative scorers in NBA history. I'm going to believe that I can get him to buy into a defensive role, and he can be a positive defensive player. And the thing with Kobe that makes him so divisive always is that, like, he's such a dazzling scorer to watch, but he doesn't have like that super high-end elite efficiency at his peak that a lot of the other all-time greats do. But I think that, first of all, he'd be more efficient in a context playing alongside other all-time great players. And also, you have to understand like the stress that he was imposing on defenses from everywhere on the floor for every second. Having that sort of off-ball gravity with Larry Bird's off-ball gravity and shooting threat and IQ and connective passing, with LeBron's rim pressure and his transition force, his three-point shooting at this point, like, I just think I've got a lot of dudes who can kill you in a ton of different ways offensively, and I'm very happy with that. Also, bunch of phenomenal playoff performers. I think that's a value with Kobe as well. His playoff translatability, getting even better there, maintaining and increasing his scoring volume while maintaining and increasing his efficiency, because really nobody could keep him from getting to his go-to spots. Even if it wasn't the most efficient, he could maintain that efficiency in the playoffs. So I'm very happy getting Kobe here. Marz?
I have Shaq and I don't have Kobe.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take
You
Kawhi.
flirted with it.
Yeah, I did, but I wanted KG. I'm gonna take Kawhi. KD wasn't available, so I'm gonna go with the next best thing I can get. All-time playoff scorer. His combination of size, strength, and ability to make mid-range shots on command is extremely valuable. Really good in isolation. I think any good team needs elite perimeter creation and isolation skills, and I think Kawhi is very high on that list. I'm actually contemplating what year of Kawhi I want, whether I want more advanced playmaking or more advanced defense, or the best combination of the both. Well, the closest to a combination of the both. based on what I'm planning to do with the rest of my roster, I'm probably gonna go with 2017 Kawhi. Because I don't need as much playmaking, I don't think. I need someone who's going to knock down wide open threes, someone who's going to play elite defense at the point of attack or just guarding the wing matchups. I see LeBron, I see KD, I see Michael Jordan, I see Kobe Bryant. I need someone who has a chance while being an elite mid-range scorer and everything that I've already alluded to. So yeah, I'm going to go with 2017 Kawhi. And I don't know where he's going to play, the 2 or the 3. But yeah, that's my pick.
Dude, you could not have picked 3 different players with like different personality types, Marz. I'm just imagining these guys interacting in the locker room together.
Kawhi gonna lead by example, KG gonna lead vocally, and Shaq gonna be the guy making all the jokes.
Shaq's also just gonna average 35 and 15.
Exactly.
I like it. I like it. I wanted Kawhi. That was definitely a guy with Steph and Hakeem that I think would be a perfect fit. But I actually am in a spot where I don't think this could have gone any better for me. I don't know how this guy fell all the way to me. I actually considered taking him at 4, and my debate was between him and Steph, but now I get both. I'm gonna put Magic Johnson at my 4. I kind of skip over the like where Carson was talking about how like the 4 position's a weird one where you need the guy to play off of a 5. Well, between Steph and Hakeem, I have the best shooter ever, one of the best post scorers ever. I don't have someone to push the pace. Now I just got the best transition player ever and someone who can initiate split actions with Come on, man. Magic's passing alongside those 2 scoring weapons. Absolutely beautiful. That's exactly who I wanted like to fill out my offense. So now I'm going to go. So I got Steph at the 1, Magic at the 4. He could move down to the 3 eventually, but I like Magic at the 4 in an all-time stance because he's 6'9". We don't want him guarding guards anyways. I'm going to have him matched up with opposing 3s or 4s. So I like him at the 4, and then I got Hakeem at the 5 for now. Now I need someone to run alongside Magic. I've got Steph as like the streaking shooter, but what about that slasher? I think the one thing my team really lacks right now is, or at least 2 things. I think 2 things that I'm really lacking are point of attack defense and slashing from the perimeter, which is why I wanted 2017 Kawhi. That would have been beautiful as my main man-to-man defender and my slasher coming off the perimeter, playing off the catch, all that good stuff. I'm deciding between 2 guys to play this role. My transition slasher, perimeter isolationist who can play at the point of attack defensively. I think this is brutal. I'm in a brutal spot here. I was thinking about this for like 2 rounds. I was like, I don't want to have to choose between these 2 guys. I am going to go with 2009 Dwayne Wade at the 2. I'm going to go 2009 Dwayne Wade at the 2. I think that's going to be my perimeter defender to play off of Steph. He offers the weak side rim protection that you don't really get from a 2 guard often. Maybe the hardest player at his peak to stay in front of ever, between the first step, the flexibility, the handle, and then someone who has proven he can play off of a transition guy like LeBron. Now we're putting him next to Magic as that off-ball cutter slasher. I think Dwayne Wade's a beautiful fit with my roster.
Marz, are you good?
Damn, Marz looks shell-shocked.
Well, you took Kobe away from Shaq.
He kept saying perimeter slasher, and I knew it was over. I was praying for Dwayne Wade.
I think Magic was a really interesting guy. The reason that he wasn't as high on my board as maybe his peak would be in a vacuum is just because you do have the clunkiness with him defensively. You do have some of the ball dominance offensively, even though obviously, I mean, he's one of the greatest offensive engines ever. But that's where I think him and Steph is like ridiculous offensively, because you have greatest off-ball player ever with greatest on-ball playmaker ever, and one of the greatest on-ball offensive engines ever. That's good work, but I was just thinking he's not the easiest guy to fit with a number of rosters.
Yeah, so that's why I feel like he fell into my lap having already had Steph Curry. Like it's like Magic's one of those guys like I said, I considered him at 4 because it was like this is a guy you can then build around. But I kind of built a team to where if he landed to me in round 3, it's a beautiful fit anyways.
Marz, you doing okay over there?
No. I'm thinking of 2 players and I'm trying to think strategically about, because I want both. And I don't have the luxury of having back-to-back picks. So I'm trying to think, if I take one, who's more likely to fall to me in the next round? And I think the answer is obvious, but if I don't take this guy and then I end up losing him, I might forfeit the draft. So, it's risky.
You might have to trade for someone's pick here. Get them both.
Hey, if y'all want to make a deal with the devil, my line is open.
Yeah. I'm nervous. I'm like, who is Marz thinking about here?
I'm going to take Chris Paul. I
wanted CP.
Okay. That's
Wait,
a
hold
good
on.
sign.
CP3, Chris Paul.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I was going to say, you
Yeah.
might want to
CP3,
rephrase that one, Big Dog.
Yeah,
I'm not drafting that guy, by the way. Yeah, I'm gonna take Chris Paul. I need someone who's gonna be able to get the ball to everyone in their spots. A pick and roll maestro. I love the idea of a pick and roll with him and Shaq or him and KG. His ability to get to the elbow, get wherever he wants, while also being someone who you can't pick on defensively despite the size. Some of the best hands in NBA history. Really good defending in the post. Leverages his low center of gravity at an elite level. I'm gonna take Clippers era Chris Paul, so I'm looking at 2014, 2016, that era, where I think he was at his smartest, most intelligent. The mid-range jumper was at his most refined, despite losing some of the athleticism. I think we have enough athleticism around him to supplement that. And quite frankly, I think he's probably the best point guard on the boards. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Chris Paul.
Yeah, I really wanted CP3. I was debating taking him this round. There's a guy who I like a little bit more, so I'm happy to get him. But I think, like, not only is CP3 just so underrated all time, he's the perfect guy to have as your point guard for this kind of team because of the defensive legitimate value that he provides, because he's a playmaking first point guard, because he just really can do it all, and we're talking about wanting versatility and guys who scale, and I think that Chris Paul is one of the best ever at the point guard position. I'm looking at my roster, and part of the reason I was considering CP3 is because he's like that true lead guard, right? A guy who can dictate so many possessions for my offense and average 10-plus assists per game, but I'm looking at the aggregate offensive skill I have. I'm looking at the off-ball and off-ball value and the playmaking feel that I'm getting from all my guys, and I'm like, I'm just going to keep rolling with that. We aren't going to have that one offensive engine in my starting five. We're going to have a bunch of guys who can kill you on and off ball, score from all over the floor, make the reads, be positive defenders. I'm taking Jerry West here. I won't hear any Jerry West slander. I think that the peak easily justifies this pick. 1966 to 1970, this guy in the regular season was averaging 29, 6, and 7 on plus 8% true shooting. Pre-3-point line, this guard was maybe the most efficient player in basketball, which is absurd to think about. And then in the playoffs, he got even better. He was 31, 5, and 7 on plus 7% true shooting. So I'm getting one of the best downhill guards ever. I'm getting one of the best foul drawing guards ever. I'm getting an elite mid-range shooter, an excellent jump shooter, and then a guy who really does it all. A guy who grew to become a very high-level playmaker. Not an Oscar Robertson if we're looking at him within the scope of his generation, but a legitimate offensive engine who would average 7+ assists per game for you. Actually got even better as a playmaker later in his career, but I kind of want the scoring and defensive peak, which I think came just a little bit earlier. And then one of the best defensive guards ever as well, a guy who had ridiculous length as a big point guard. And I wish that we had his block numbers, because I think that there would definitely be seasons where he was above a block a game. The 31 game sample we do have where they actually tracked steals and blocks, he averaged 2.6 steals per game. So I'm getting a great defensive playmaker, an all-time great scorer, a very good passer offensively, another guy who can do it on and off ball, and I just love the identity that I'm putting together as a team. I think I have a lot of really complete players and really no holes right now except for center, which I'm going to address.
He's the most obvious guy that would be a volume three-point shooter. Like, you go back and he was shooting from 27 feet in the 60s. That's actually the guy that I was debating between him and Wade when I needed that two guard. West is awesome, man. West is the freaking, he's amazing.
Yeah.
You took the wrong one.
You got me.
I think Logan
got me.
Did I get you again?
Yeah.
Did you want Jerry?
Okay, I really want 3 different players. I wish I had 3
Yeah, you
picks
can
in a
only
row.
Well, you do have 2.
That's 2 picks and he's complaining about not having more.
I'm
Marz
greedy,
wanted
man.
the turn.
I mean, I'm willing to. I would trade out of this one, but I'm going to get both of these guys. I'm really praying that this third guy falls to me, because I would love to have him in terms of positional versatility. So with my first pick here, I'm going to take Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think that when we're just looking at value and skill sets, Giannis brings me a very unique blend of rim pressure, elite athleticism, strength, in defense. And I'm going to get like 20 to 20 to 2021 Giannis. I think this is the most refined Giannis has been ever offensively, this version that we saw this year, 2024 and 2025, like downhill pressure, playmaking, combining it with eliminating the three-point shot and mid-range shooting. And so maybe if I was starting a team from scratch, I might take this version of Giannis to be my offensive engine, but that's not primarily what I need him to do on this roster. I've got other guys who can get it done offensively. I really need him to be impactful defensively, and I feel like the most impactful that Giannis was on that end was 2019 to 2021. So I'm getting one of the most physical and dominant presences the league has ever seen, and he can get it done on both ends. And with my next pick, I was thinking about taking a guy with a similar archetype, but instead, for positional versatility and maximum flexibility with skill sets, I'm going to take Nikola Jokic here because I think Jokic provides the most unique positional value of anybody remaining on the board. You know, he may not be the best fit in terms of not having a hole, right? He is uniquely going to probably be hunted defensively in a way that a lot of these other all-time players aren't, but he's also going to bring me a unique offensive impact that nobody else, frankly, on the board can bring me. So it's not the most seamless fit, but I think they're two of the most valuable skill sets left on the board, and so I'm going to take them.
I also think, like, being a defensive liability is a particular concern in this draft. And not to say that Jokic is a liability, he's a fine defender, but obviously compared to everybody else, especially the all-time great centers, most of whom are truly great two-way players, like, he's lagging way behind. But I look at your roster, Logan, and I'm like, has there ever been a better lineup to insulate Jokic defensively than MJ, KD, Giannis, Duncan? Like, you don't have a single small guard on the floor. Everybody around him is extremely athletic, extremely big. Duncan can be that actual defensive anchor. And then you're getting the additional rim protection of Giannis and KD and all of their insane length. Like, you've just got so much size, so much athleticism, so many long-ass wingspans. I think that makes sense for your roster. That being said, Jokic, even though I think he's the offensive GOAT, still wasn't one of the two centers who I was really considering. So now I have to take one. I mean, I've just been waiting because it's literally like a toss-up for me between these two guys. I'm going to take Wilt Chamberlain, 1967 and 1968 Wilt specifically. Actually, I am going to do that.
Can you do that? Can you say a player and then change your
Can I
mind?
pump fake?
Yeah.
Can I pump
That's
fake?
more than you shot the ball.
All right, well, I finished the shot, and I made the shot because I'm taking Wilt. I just considered for 1 second if the free throw shooting was enough. But you know what? I'll get another 6 center, and if Wilt's having a really bad day from the line, we can go away from him. I just think, like, Wilt's such an interesting player because you have the mythical 50-point-per-game season, right? And you have all of his craziest statistical feats, and yet that was not when he peaked as a basketball player. When he peaked was when he figured out, how do I maximize all this ridiculous God-given ability I have that is like so far past any of my peers and channel it into the best winning player I can be, the best passer I can be, the best defender I can be, the most efficient I can be as a scorer. And that's everything that happened with the Sixers when he won the title in 67 and anchored one of the best teams ever. But it's a brief peak. It's only a couple years when he really got it all going at that level, but that's all I need. I mean, the guy averaged in 1967, 24, 24, and 8 on 68% from the field. That's plus 14% relative true shooting. While he anchored the number one defense, the only time in Bill Russell's career that he did not anchor the number one defense was what Wilt did with those Sixers. And yeah, I'm just getting a hyper-efficient scorer, unrivaled physical freak, excellent playmaking hub, one of the greatest defenders ever in this version. I'm really happy with this. I just think this is the best Wilt ever was, and that's one of the best players we've ever seen. I think probably a top 5 peak ever, and I'm getting him in the 5th round. So I'm really happy with that.
It's a great pick.
Thank you, Marz.
Yeah. The guy I wanted made it, so I'm happy. I got both of them. I'm taking SGA. He's gonna play my 2. I didn't know if he was gonna make it, but he did. I think maybe because it's so fresh, people aren't or haven't acknowledged that we're watching an all-time great player peak in front of our eyes. Shout out to, is it Brett Usher on Twitter who made the compilation? That apparently got SGA the love he deserved. But yeah,
funny.
just a historic scoring season. Led the league in scoring. Um, plus 50% from mid range. One of the best drivers in the league. Kept it up throughout the playoffs, although some of the efficiency stuff waned in terms of the 3-point shot. But we don't care about shooting threes. Elite isolationist, one of the best handles ever. I think probably the best handle ever for someone his size.
Yes,
Probably.
I agree.
He doesn't have the typical athleticism, like he doesn't have MJ or Wade athleticism, but the way in which he controls his body, his agility, his change of direction, all of those things do lend me to calling him an A-tier athlete. And then he's also someone who is a really good off-ball defender, playing in the passing lanes, providing rim protection at the guard spot. Not the greatest on ball, but at the end of the day, I have Chris Paul and Kawhi and Kevin Garnett, so I'm all right with his defensive playmaking. So yeah, ultimately, really happy with my backcourt. So thank you for taking Wilt and Jerry West.
You're welcome.
I'm in a very interesting spot here because the guy that I want to fill out my starting lineup, I can probably wait like 3 or 4 rounds for. I think there's a few guys I have in mind that are like the ideal number 3 or positional number 3 next to Steph, Wade, Magic, and Hakeem. So I'm in an interesting spot where it's like now I need to start building out my bench. Now I need to start getting guys off the board. And there's someone I'm looking at on my board that's just way too good to still be around. Like I said, I was debating between Steph and Magic at 4. I was also debating Hakeem versus someone else at 5 to pair with Steph. Now I'm going to get him because I think what Marz said about the Rockets was interesting. Like, you can run 2 bigs together. Well, Hakeem is kind of one of those guys who can very easily play the 4, not just because of the defensive versatility and the switchability, but because he could stretch out to the mid-range. He had a ridiculous...
He
played with
literally
another
did.
center
Yeah,
for
he
the
literally
first few
did.
years of his
Yeah.
career. Yeah.
Right, like he could play the 4. And then I'm gonna go out and get a 5 who I think could very easily play next to him on offense and defense, and is just simply again one of the greatest players ever. I'm gonna take Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as my 6th man. That just sounds crazy to say. I'm gonna take Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as my 6th man, specifically 77 Kareem when he hit like plus 15% efficiency in the playoffs against Bill Walton and guys like absolute freak, maybe the best half court scorer ever. Just an unreal weapon. You get it to the post and you are chilling. And I'm going to have slashers. I'm going to have passers. I'm going to have shooters playing off of him. And also just an all-time great rim protector and rebounder. So I feel really good about getting Kareem on the 5th round here.
Chilling.
Yeah.
Chilling. We're going to
That's
be
who I
chilling.
was debating versus Wilt, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking one or the other, and like
I was probably gonna just take the one you didn't. I knew that's where
Yeah.
you were going because like it's two-way guys. So I was like, whichever
Yeah.
one. I do prefer Kareem with my roster construction, but I do think Wilt is just a very noticeably better defender, and rim protector and post defender, especially so
compared to 77 Kareem. Like if you
Exactly.
took 71, 72 Kareem, that's when I think he would be more comparable defensively. But yeah, I think they're
100%.
super close. I did
Yeah.
consider literally just having Kareem be a north of 70% free throw shooter being enough compared to Wilt, who sometimes was at 40%. But I don't know. I just think Wilt was such an all-around freak impact guy. But that's a great pick. So we've all got our starting lineups. Let's take a quick break before we get into the bench to just recap where we are up to this point. So Logan, will you give us your starting 5?
So my selections thus far have been Michael Jordan, Tim Duncan, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Nikola Jokic.
Okay. I have LeBron, Larry Bird, Kobe Bryant, Jerry West, and Wilt. Marz?
I have Chris Paul, SGA, Kawhi, Kevin Garnett, and Shaq.
I need to preface this by saying this is not my starting 5.
Yeah. That's a
no,
good
no,
point.
just
your
my
first
5.
5 picks.
Got you. My first 5 picks have been Steph Curry, Hakeem Olajuwon, Magic Johnson, Dwayne Wade, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Beautiful. A lot of great names off the board. I think this is where the draft potentially gets really interesting. Well, I'm really excited for like the 10th, 11th, 12th rounds. I think that's where things are going to get super fun. But it's back to you, Tyler. Why don't you get
Yeah,
us
so
started?
this is
Who
where
you
I
got?
think we got to start getting interesting with the picks. We got to look at talent, but we also got to look at how can these guys play off of the super, like, they're all superstars, but mega all-time great stars that we've put together. I'm looking at
Robert Covington. You want him.
Robert
You need
Covington could very easily go 6th here in the 6th round.
Point.
The one thing I would say my team is really lacking right now is I don't have that next like really good 3-point shooter off of Steph. I would say my second best 3-point shooter right now is like Magic Johnson, which is kind of, that's not great.
Yeah.
So I definitely need a 3-point shooter. I could use another slasher, another creator, but also someone who's not going to be a liability defensively. This is a guy who I actually think is a criminally underrated defender. Not necessarily an all-time guy, but kind of in the same line. I'd actually say a little bit better than Shea in terms of he's going to give you defensive playmaking. He's a legit guard who can protect the rim. Because of his size and athleticism, and he can defend multiple positions, and then just simply had one of the highest scoring peaks ever. We're going peak for peak. I'm going to take 2003 Tracy McGrady here. He shot 39% from 3 on 6 attempts a game. He averaged 32 points a game on an offense that had no weapons in an era that had no space, no pace. Playing off of other all-time great playmakers and stuff like that, I think this is going to be a guy who's just going to simply look like one of the best players ever.
Can you say that about T-Mac's defense again, please? Because I don't think people heard you.
Tracy McGrady was a very, very good defensive player and also a very, very good passer, which gets lost in time. Tracy McGrady was he was a damn near flawless player for a couple of years.
Well, he was a defensive specialist almost like Toronto early in his career.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I
People
think
telling me he's a liability because
I think you could definitely make a case for early Orlando T-Mac, even like 01, 02 to be on the all defensive team. Wouldn't make me mad. I don't think 03 T-Mac was quite that, but also look at the offensive load this guy's carrying. His second option was like rookie Mike Miller, I think. So yeah, I feel
Let's
really
not
good about
disrespect Pat Garrity, okay?
I
Quality
got you.
3-point shooter.
How
No,
dare
those
he not
rosters
get
are
out the
crazy.
first round, man? It's unforgivable.
Yeah, 03 T-Mac specifically, like that 3-point shooting at legitimate volume is just such a differentiator for him because the biggest struggle for him as like a guy in these conversations was just that the inefficiency could be really rough in a lot of years. Not this year. Like with that combination of rim pressure, his best foul drawing season, crazy free throw volume, and the really good 3-point shooting. If he's a 33%, 32% 3-point shooter like he was a lot of other years, he's not quite that same monster, but that 03 season was special for sure.
Yeah, he averaged 32, 7, and 6, 2 steals and a block, 10 free throw attempts a game, 39% from 3. Like, this is a guy who just checked every box. And I just feel like getting him off the bench to play with other superstars, it's just, I love the fit.
It's a great
Marz,
pick.
it's to you.
I'm thinking between 3 people. I'm confident one of them will drop. I'm confident 2 of them will drop, but I also really want this guy. If you can't tell, I'm trying to build an identity here.
If you take who I want, Marz, I'm going to be pissed.
I don't think you're on my wavelength. This is
Okay.
high-level intellectual thinking.
Ooh.
I don't want anyone who can be picked on defensively. I don't want my team to have someone where we're looking at it and it's like, yeah, we're going to bring him into the action and we're going to be fine. I already have maybe the best wing defender in NBA history. If I don't have him, I'm about to because I'm taking Scottie Pippen.
I wanted Pippen.
I've got one and 2. Whoever's the best, I've got the second best. I've got both of them. Elite playmaker, elite passer, a monster in transition. I think transition is something I've been missing a bit on my team. Really only KG was really running the floor consistently. So monster in transition, really good passer, could drive a closeout, could get to the mid-range, had a weird little hook floater thing that he used to go to, which was quite successful. And then also just his ability to also guard 1 through 5, guard at the point of attack, pick up full court, use his length to disrupt away from the ball. Pretty much the perfect wing defender. Yeah, I don't think I have to sell the Scottie Pippen case anymore. I think he's a great pick.
Carson, are you willing
I'm
to?
sick to my stomach.
Are you open to trading picks, bruh?
No, I don't want to because whatever you're scheming up, I don't trust it. And frankly,
just
right
think-
now,
I just-
I'm dealing
with the way to
emotional
draft is-
heartbreak.
With the way it's falling out, I just don't think I'm going to get my guy here.
Well, maybe I'm going to take your guy then. And you know what? I'd
That's
be
what
okay
I'm worried
with that.
about.
Because Marz just took my guy, and like that really hurt, dude. Because first of all, when you took Kawhi, I felt good because I was like, okay, he's not going to also take Scotty, and then you did take him, and I could
That's
tell
where
the
you're
second
wrong.
you started your villain monologue, which to me is what that was about. Oh, I have an identity, I want defense. I was like, man. I mean, I think it's an amazing pick. I think
Me
that
and Nico Harrison, we like this. Like,
you see the vision. When it comes to superstars who can do the role player stuff, there's almost nobody better than Scotty. I mean, just the playmaking, the ridiculous athleticism and defensive value as a really good positional rebounder, something of a secondary rim protector, but like one of the best ever at playing the passing lanes. I think he's a more valuable all-around defender than Kawhi. When it comes to just like pure one-on-one perimeter stopping, I would take Kawhi, but I think Scotty's the better off-ball defender. So, yeah, it's just a fantastic pick. And, you know, if he gets to shoot with that shortened three-point line from 95 to 97, if we could give him an alternate court, then you're even getting a little floor spacing value. But I think that's just a phenomenal pick. So, I'm hurt. I'm going to take the next guy who I wanted, who's in a different mold. But I talked about not having that, like, on-ball, all-time playmaking offensive engine in my starting five. I'm going to get that guy from my bench now. I'm going to take Oscar Robertson. I think that Oscar is underratedly responsible for one of the three greatest runs of team offense when you look at an individual guy who just year after year was churning out number one offenses for a decade. It's Magic with the Showtime Lakers. It's Nash across Dallas and Phoenix, and then it's Oscar Robertson in the 1960s. He is one of the greatest playmakers ever. He has one of the greatest combinations of scoring and playmaking we've ever seen. One of the rare guys who could have at least made a case for being the best scorer and passer simultaneously. Like, across his Cincinnati years, his entire tenure there, he averaged 29, 8.5, and 10 on plus 8.5% relative true shooting. A lot of similarities with West as a scorer in that you're getting that combination of like elite downhill pressure. Both of these guys were all-time great free throw drawers, just lived at the line, but then also great mid-range shooters. And Oscar was just so big and strong, and he could shoot over top. Big-ass guard, which is why I considered like a Nash just for the offensive value, but I feel like it's much, much easier to have Oscar at least be a functional part of a team defense. He was never like a real strong plus, but he has the physical tools to fit in, where Nash, I know, is just going to get picked on relentlessly. And like, yeah, insane efficiency, 7-time assist leader, one of the great transition players that we've seen. And I feel phenomenal about him running my bench unit for the most part, but also knowing that I can go with him in a spot if I do want to steady my offense with somebody who can really hold the reins. I feel great about having Oscar for a number of those different roles as one of the great offensive players ever.
Yeah, I definitely would have taken Big O here. He would have been a great addition. Super well-rounded, never really had the team. You know, it's like you're talking about guys that get that team success held against them, Marz, like people shitting on T-Mac, and like it's just ring culture's toxic and stupid.
You want to know the stat for Oscar? His years with the Royals, they won 54% of their games with him, 24% of their games without him.
Carson, who was their second best player, bro?
Well, in the early years, it was Jack
Embry.
Twyman. Yeah, Wayne Embry was decent, but there were some really, really rough years there. And the thing was, they were always just horrible defensively. They were like the best offense in basketball every year, and never even like an average defense, really. He also joined them when they were the worst team in the league, and they immediately became the number one offense once he was there.
Let's not dog on Jerry Lucas now. Jerry Lucas could hoop.
No,
On
Jerry Lucas
offense.
could hoop.
On
Yeah,
offense.
exactly, but they just never had
That's the
defensive
story
talent.
of like every player on the team.
Yeah.
They were good
Very
on
true.
offense. They just ignore the other sides of the ball.
Yeah. So who do you want, Logan?
So this is a guy that I wanted earlier. I am going to land him here at the turnaround pick. I'm going to take Dr. J with pick number 24. And
Damn, that's a good pick.
when I think of, we're talking about connective traits and guys who are really going to work well alongside other superstars, I think Dr. J is one of those wings. I thought about Scotty. I would have taken Dr. J probably over Scotty too, just with the difference in offensive play. But he's a problem in transition. He's a great positional rebounder, an underrated shooter and playmaker, and an insane athlete in rim pressure. And again, I think when we're looking at a connective context, he does a lot of things at a really high level. Again, a serviceable playmaker and shooter, but an elite rebounder, defender, and athlete. And yeah, I think he's just got a really well-rounded game with no holes. And I was debating between him and Giannis earlier, but I'm really happy that I get to get both of them on the roster. I would have loved to have gotten Big O. And so I'm conflicted.
Talk to me, man. Just let it all out there. By the way,
I
Dr.
think
J's
there's-
a great pick. I wanted him next round.
I think there's one position still that has somewhat of an abundance of players in this archetype, and there's different levels to how great these players are in this archetype. Damn. I'm going to take Bill Russell. And I took Jokic earlier. I think it's interesting with the versatility that those guys can give me, right? I'm getting an all-time offensive player with one of them. I'm getting the greatest defensive player with the other. And so I just like the versatility that those guys give me with looks. They may not give me complete value at all times just because of the deficiencies that they both have, but I like the versatility in lineups and looks that I'm going to be able to turn to with both of them. And kind of what you were saying with Wilt, Carson, what you were saying with Big O, it's just a little late. It's a little too late for Bill to be hanging around in these conversations. So I'm going to take Bill here with pick number 25.
Yeah. I mean, it's an unquestionable top 10 peak ever. And if you are questioning it, Marz probably has a monologue that he can give you right now about the unprecedented value of an individual defense player at that time, and I could do the same thing. And the guy anchored the greatest dynasty of all time, even though they were often mediocre to bad on offense, because they were by that much the greatest defense ever, which they only were with Bill Russell. Mediocre before him, mediocre after him, always lapping the league defensively. So I think that it's just a good value pick. I mean, the center position is really deep, but he's the last guy in that like top tier of the dudes who were just hanging around that still had to go off the board. I'm going to take a very different looking big man, a very modern big man. I want Anthony Davis here. And I talked about wanting somebody who can knock down free throws.
I thought you were going to take Mobley to keep it a stack, bruh.
Could you imagine if I took Evan Mobley?
He pretty much did, just like better at everything. Yeah,
exactly. I took the ideal modern 4-5 hybrid, a guy who I know can dominate at both positions, and I just think that AD's peak from 2017 to 2020, when he fully grew into his offensive game, is just so ridiculous. Like, maybe I can't expect him to recreate the level of jump shooter he was in the bubble when he was 50% from mid-range and 38% from three, because that was just a ridiculously dominant offensive player on top of being probably the best defender in the league at that time. But I am getting one of the most complete defensive bigs ever, a guy who can play every pick and roll coverage, who can play up at the level, who can really disturb pocket passes with his length and his hands, a guy who can switch, a guy who can anchor the defense in drop, who can be that elite pure rim protector, an elite defensive rebounder, one of the great stock machines that we see in modern times. And then offensively at this point, I mean, was a monster in the paint, who was eating up free throws, who has that underrated paint touch and elite athleticism, but then also did have that more well-rounded perimeter skill and some legitimate jump shooting. So I talked about how that like super well-rounded power forward is a rare archetype. And after KG, AD is probably my favorite guy in that mold. And I know that, again, I can't also play him at the 5. He can do both at such a high level. So I just love the versatility that he gives me here. Marz?
It's a great pick.
You,
he was on my short list. Ultimately, he wasn't going to be my first choice. I still don't know what my first choice is. It's between two. I think one is more likely to drop. So I'm going to take David Robinson. He's to me, I view him as KG of the 90s. All-time dominant defensive player who was probably over-leveraged offensively. But on this team, he will not be. He will be my play finishing, mid-range face-up jump shooting big man who will provide all-time great rim protection, rebounding, and will run the floor like a gazelle. We will not be asking him for these post-up isolations or to be a playmaker out the post. I just think he's one of the most underrated defensive players, especially at his peak in NBA history. I believe I've said it to one of you guys. You guys have all been on the show at one point or another. I don't know who I said it to. I'm not convinced Tim Duncan was the best player on that 99 Spurs championship team. I think David Robinson was a monster, even at that point, and that was after the injuries. I just think he was amazing. And I think on this team, when I have so much offensive juice and so much creation, we're no longer relying on David Robinson to do things that he probably wasn't capable of doing when we have Sean Elliott as his offensive help. I just think he's great. There's not much more I can really say. I think he's amazing, and he's going to be my KG. When KG gets tired, David Robinson gonna step in and we not gonna miss a beat. That's the plan.
That's a great pick.
David Robinson is such a good pick with your team because I immediately think of staggering him with Chris Paul, and that's your two-man game with bench units. Chris Paul, you can't guard a two-man game between Chris Paul and
I've
David
seen
Robinson.
him and Avery Johnson have an elite two-man game.
Yeah.
They used to
Yeah,
have this.
there's nothing you can
David
do.
Robinson would spin out the post and catch a lob. That used to happen like every game. Now I got Chris Paul
Yeah.
throwing that lob, so we locked in.
Yeah, and also the underrated variable of it too is David Robinson can definitely play with Shaq. Like you can definitely do that.
Yeah.
That's a duo that's playable. Chris Paul and David Robinson though to me is like the ultimate duo of the two most underrated players from a historical standpoint. Like two guys that are completely misunderstood. I think David Robinson was like a 10 out of 10 pick. I also want to shout out the Dr. J pick from Logan because that guy is someone who just gets criminally underrated because his peak happened in the ABA. Like, this is a dude who in the ABA finals was giving you like 40, 15, and 6 a game, 2.5 steals, 2.5 blocks. Like, just absolute monster of a player. I was deciding between AD and someone else for my pick here. So Carson actually made the choice easy for me. Okay. I think I didn't emphasize enough that I have Magic and Kareem now, so that's gonna be like my other duo. I got Steph and Hakeem as like one of my duos, and then I got Magic and Kareem as my other duo.
That's pretty scary.
And because of the way that staggers, I'm gonna need a true four-man to play in the Steph and Hakeem minutes, and Draymond Green is getting paired back up with Steph Curry.
Wow.
We are getting 2016 Draymond Green, the guy who almost shot 40% from three, maybe the most versatile defender ever. He's going to be the one initiating the offense with Steph running around off ball. I think as soon as I picked Steph, I knew I was going to get Draymond Green at some point, and I just can't risk letting him fall because what people seem to like not wrap their heads around is like when Draymond is playing with Steph Curry, he has the impact of an MVP. He just does. That's the type of player I'm getting here. So on any other team, maybe Draymond wouldn't be the most likely pick here, but specifically on a team that has Steph Curry and Hakeem Olajuwon, I think Draymond Green immediately steps in as like my four-man to stagger in those lineups, and I feel really good about that. I still think I need some more three-point shooters though. I think that's where I need to go next. I think I'm kind of lacking in that department. Steph and T-Mac are like my only two volume three-point shooters I feel good about. And there's a lot of guys on the board that I can go with here. There's so many different looks I can go to. This is probably going to be my toughest pick of the draft because I could go for my starting three. I could go for another backup guy to play with Magic and Kareem. I need some more perimeter defense. I need shooting. I think I'm going to draft my three here. I can't risk him getting off the board because of how valuable he is in this lineup. I'm going to take 2019 Paul George as my starting three. As my starting three, I think.
He was on my board.
That's a volume 40% three-point shooter, one of the best perimeter defenders we've ever seen. Immediately stepping into a lineup that has Steph, Dwayne Wade, Magic Johnson. The playmaking really isn't a concern for me. I'm going to take 2019 PG as my small forward.
Well, and also that year you have the most relentless rim pressure from PG. Probably you have the most ridiculous free throw numbers. You have the best rebounding numbers. Like, I was thinking I was probably going to try to save PG for later. And I think he's somebody who will get underrated as a pick when people look at this graphic or whatever because of whatever reputation he has. But that Paul George, monster, do-it-all wing, you said it all. I mean, he's the exact sort of like just complimentary elite guy you want on the wings for this roster. I think it's a really good pick. Draymond, that might be a little high for me, but I do love Draymond Green.
I know I wasn't taking Draymond.
Really?
But I don't have
not on your
Steph.
board?
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Well, I don't have
The Steph
Steph. If
factor
you don't have
does
Steph,
amplify.
Draymond kind of becomes like undraftable for my team. No disrespect to Draymond, but I think once you have Steph, everyone else kind of has to just cross Draymond off the list. That's how I view it.
T-Mac and Paul George off your bench, all-time aesthetic team right there. Like that.
Yeah, we're
that's
getting the
gonna be
pure
fun.
hoopers. We're getting and I got Hakeem as my center. I feel good about the aesthetics on this
For
team.
sure.
I'm gonna go anti-aesthetics. I've already got SGA. I need another free throw merchant.
David Robinson.
Harden. Do it, Marz. Take your
I've
boy.
got an identity. I've got an identity to uphold. Yeah, I'm going with Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid, at his peak, 2024, 2023, is one of the greatest scorers the game has ever seen. Someone who just gets to the free throw line at will. We're looking at 11, 12 free throws a game, 85+% from the line. One of the great mid-range scorers, playing in the middle of the floor. Can't stop him. And then defensively, especially when he fully engaged, he can take away the rim from teams. So I'm looking at someone who's one of the best drop bigs I've ever seen, one of the best mid-range scorers I've ever seen, one of the best face-up scorers I've ever seen, and gets to the free throw line and capitalizes on it, unlike anyone I've ever seen. And I'm assuming there's no injuries in this draft.
Yeah. We're giving you the benefit of the doubt with health. You're good.
So I've drafted one of the best players to ever play, and I've got him in what, the 7th round, 8th round?
Damn, Marz, I'm sorry. I'm getting a MB just tore his ACL. He's out. I'm sorry.
Look at him trying to cheat my team already. He knows how dangerous a healthy Joel Embiid is.
The only pick that you could have made that would have pissed Logan off more than Harden probably would have been Joel Embiid.
I know.
Yeah.
And I'm absolutely
What about
amazed.
Sabonis?
He got Jokic on his team. He's got Jokic on his team. That's 50. That's all I need. That's 50. We've seen that before. But before I hand over the mic, I wanted to say something about Bill Russell because he is my GOAT, as people know. I think one thing that gets swept under the rug in terms of how dominant those Celtics defenses were is when you evaluate defenses, it's usually relative defensive rating and stuff. Because there were so few teams in the league, the Celtics were skewing the league average defensive rating so much that they've probably underrated themselves. Like you look at, for example, the 64 Celtics, I think they were like a -8.5 defense. But if you just remove their defensive rating and just calculate the rest of the teams, they were like a -15.
Right.
So
that's why I like
how
to compare
dominant they
them
are
to the
against
number
understated.
2 defense every year. And they're almost always like 5 points or more better than the number 2 defense, which I think
usually
when the
was a
league
Wilt
is
team,
small.
by the way.
Yeah, but I think that is a great point that you made, and I think that it is an even better capture of how dominant their defenses were if you compare them to the other best, because like you said, they literally do skew the relative defensive rating. But another W Mars point on Bill Russell and his
As
greatness.
always,
No
he
surprise
is the
there.
GOAT. But unfortunately, Joel Embiid will be giving him 40.
I don't know if Embiid's giving him 40, man. I like Bill Russell. I think Logan's going with the Bill Russell lineup when he faces Embiid, maybe a little more than Jokic. Or maybe he's just putting Duncan on him, actually. Probably just put Duncan on him. I have quite a decision on my hands here. There's one big who I really want. But I also think that I could do some work on the wings for my bench. I love my starting lineup on the wings, but I haven't gone to that group at all off the bench. So I'm going to take Rick Barry. I think he's just too good. I think I'm going to take 1975 Rick Barry if I can go single season, because I think that that's when he was most realized as a passer. Like if you look at the 67 season or some of his ABA numbers, I mean, like just the free throw numbers are ridiculous. The scoring volume is absurd. The rebounding numbers are a little bit higher. But when you get to 75 and he's averaging 31, 6, and 6, I just think one of the best passing forwards we've ever seen, one of the better jump shooting forwards we've ever seen. Really great hands defensively. So like similar to Larry, I got to find how my honkies can make themselves a living defensively. And I actually think that both those guys are pretty solid at it with their IQ and again, the elite value in terms of generating steals, and really just one of the all-time great individual carry jobs that we've seen to a title in NBA history. And that's not to disrespect that team, because there was other talent there. You got Jamal Wilkes, you got my beloved Clifford Ray. Like there were dudes on that team, but he had such a massive offensive load and he carried it successfully to a title. So I think I've got another really, really nice kind of do-it-all forward offensively, and the peak was just a little bit too high for me to pass up on. There's another guy whose fit I really love who maybe I'll try to get next, but Rick Barry was a monster.
It's a good pick. I was afraid you were going to take the guy I was interested in, but he's going to fall to me. I'm going to take Elgin Baylor here. I need to keep filling out my depth on the wings here, and I want guys who can do a little bit of everything. Baylor's going to give me elite positional rebounding. He's going to bring some hell of a scoring punch. I mean, scored 71 in a single game, led the playoffs in scoring 4 straight years. Like I said, can play at the 2 or the 3, and I think was really ahead of his time in terms of finishing at the rim, in terms of just like stuff that you just didn't see.
Yeah, he just looks different.
back
I mean,
then.
his hang time is like different from anybody else. He's just a different level of athlete.
Yeah, so, I may have some concerns about my spacing, but we're going to address that later in the draft. I feel like there are some guys that we're going to be able to find. I feel like really well-rounded guys, like last time we did this draft a long time ago, I want to say it was like 4 or 5 years ago at this point now, Carson. I feel like I had a really heavy overemphasis on shooting and scoring and floor spacing and aesthetics, and I want more guys who are well-rounded and bring me complete value in other areas. And so I'm not going to focus on shooting as much, and I feel like Elgin brings me value in basically every other area. Along with that, this is not a guy who's going to help my spacing. I've been putting off drafting this archetype, and I honestly feel like I could probably wait until next round to get a guy like this. But I'm going to go ahead and take him. I'm going to take Jason Kidd here. When I look at my lineup, I don't have an actual primary ball handler. And so I feel like if my guys are dealing with ball pressure, dealing with, Jokic is that guy, but there's not like a true lead guard yet on my roster. I was going to take Kidd way earlier in this draft, but I'm glad I waited for the best value. I'm getting one of the best defenders in basketball at his peak, one of the best passers in basketball. Sure, we've got some floor spacing issues, but that's not really a concern. I'm more concerned with not having any weak points on defense. And I feel like outside of Jokic, I feel like all of my guys kind of check that box. So, yeah, I'm going to address spacing later. I feel like that's the one shortcoming that my team's got thus far.
Yeah, that's the challenge with Kidd, because I think he's the best defensive guard ever, but he's one of the absolute worst offensive players who will be drafted today. Just some major efficiency limitations there, and really I think the ideal role for him maybe is to get more of like that late 2000s kid when you're thinking about this roster, or really mid 2000s, once he started shooting the three more consistently with volume and solid efficiency, because I just think you don't really want to entrust the keys of your offense in the half court. I mean, in transition, he's fantastic, but just with his major scoring issues.
When I'm looking at how my lineup is going to run, though, we're not really going to run a ton. Where he's going to be out there with Jokic. I'm more looking to find guys who can work around him positionally and make up for him. So I like Kidd's fit on my team.
The Elgin pick was interesting, too. I think that he and Barry are a couple of guys you look at as those great throwback forwards. I do prefer Barry a bit, just because I think when it comes to fitting around other guys, better passer, although Elgin was an underrated passer, but Rick Barry is one of the best passing forwards ever and the better shooter. That's something that I do want to prioritize with my roster. I've talked about it, but that feel, that shooting, that on and off ball value. So why don't I get one of the greatest shooters and one of the greatest off-ball players of all time? In my opinion, the greatest off-ball mover this game has ever seen. I'm taking Reggie Miller here. I think that is such a specific elite all-time value that he can bring me as that just unbelievable gravity force, truly, I think only surpassed by Steph in terms of his off-ball threat. And just such an underrated player. This guy generated elite team offense after elite team offense, basically was an automatic top 8 offense for the Pacers throughout the 90s, even as the pieces around him kind of shuffled in and out. And he's not going to have the insane raw counting stats to give him the full credit he deserves for that. But if you watch the absurd amounts of defensive attention that he is demanding every single time he curls around a pin down or he punishes an overplay with a back cut, like just constantly stressing the defense, such an elite spacing weapon, such a ridiculously efficient scorer. If you look from 92 to 95 in the playoffs, Reggie, who was a playoff riser, he would notch up his scoring volume a bit, 25.3 points per game on better than plus 9% true shooting. So I feel like he's a guy who, okay, if I just want that insane shooting weapon, boom, I can slot him into my starting lineup. Also, crazy crafty, got to the line at an elite rate, really underrated there as well. I love it. I don't need somebody who's going to handle the ball a ton. I need somebody who's going to seamlessly fit in offensively and yet somehow break the game just by being on the floor, and that's what Reggie Miller gives me.
It's a
Marz?
good pick.
Thank you.
I'm between 3 people. And I don't know where I want to go.
Can I just say Reggie's a snipe this late in the draft? Like, I'm surprised he didn't go quicker. Like,
I
that's the
thought
ideal guy. You could put him in, like what I said with Steph, he's basically diet version of that.
Exactly. And I thought with this group of nerds, there was a bunch of guys who I thought were going to go high, and I thought Reggie was going to be one of them. So I'm happy to get him in the
I've been
9th
thinking
round.
about Reggie for a while, but I have an identity.
Yeah, you do.
So
You do.
He does not fit the identity, unfortunately.
You're the Miami Heat of our world. You're the nastiest, hardest working, defensive-minded, grittiest team in the league.
And I'm trying to stick to that, and I don't know where I want to go. It's between 3 people.
This team's going to be coached by Larry Brown, by the way.
You guys are going to score 68 points. So, I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm going to go with Walt Clyde Frazier. That's where I'm going to go.
I mean, that's your identity, man.
Yeah. Jason Kidd to me is the best defensive point guard ever. Walt Clyde Frazier to me is 2. His hands, his anticipation in passing lanes was amazing. His ability to guard at the point of attack, his strength, his physicality, his size, especially when you look at the era in which he played in, he was just forcing errors at a rate that, I don't think there's numbers for it, but he was forcing errors at a rate that were quite insurmountable. And then as a scorer, just an elite mid-range game, obviously without the 3-point line, a bunch of counters. One of my favorite games to go back and watch is Game 7 of the 1970 NBA Finals. It was a Walt Frazier masterclass. I know it's remembered for the Willis Reed stuff, but Walt Frazier was the best player on the court. Shout out to Will Chamberlain going like 1 for 11 from the free throw line, by the way. But yeah, Walt Frazier, just a monster defensively, someone who can pass, but can get to the mid-range, get to an array of different shots, so many counters, just an absolute monster. And I think for my identity of my team, I needed someone who I could trust with the ball in their hands, while also being someone who is going to be a menace on defense. And I think he fits that better than the other options I had.
It's a nice pick, man.
I like that pick. That's a really good pick. I'm in another weird spot because I've been talking about my stagger. I have my Steph Curry, Draymond, Hakeem kind of stagger. Now I need to build out my Magic and Kareem lineup. And I think with Magic and Kareem, I instantly need to go for athletic wings. Like athletic wings who can put the ball on the floor, can score, can create, but also can defend multiple positions. And I think there are like 4 or 5 guys right now that perfectly fit that mold. None better than Jason Tatum. I'm going to take Jason Tatum here. Specifically 2024 Jason Tatum, of course. Or actually, you could go for 2025, whatever. Just current Jason Tatum. I think this guy gives me a different look on offense. I can go to that spread pick and roll. I can go to 5-out ISO game with him. I can run some stuff through him in the mid-post. But most importantly, I like everything he brings for me defensively. He's one of the best wing rebounders we've ever seen. He can legitimately defend 1 through 5 at a decent level. Just gives me a ton of different looks I can go to. And if we're talking about fit and versatility, I don't think anybody fits that description better in the current NBA than Jason Tatum. So I really like getting him on this team to kind of like be my other Paul George. They're very similar in ways. I like that.
Yeah, I like
He
that.
absolutely can't defend any of the 5s that have been drafted today. Just want to make that clear.
That's
true.
a good point.
He's not
Unless
going to
Daniel Gafford is about to get drafted. Yeah.
It's a very good point.
Maybe
But
Bill
that's
Russell.
why we got Draymond. We got Draymond because he can lock up Shaq. We know that.
Oh, facts.
We've seen that debate. We've seen that conversation. No, I got Hakeem and Kareem for the biggest of the big. But if I'm going up against a lineup with Jokic, for example, with Logan's team, I can kind of do what OKC did. I could throw Tatum out there. I could throw Draymond out there, and we can do the little front the post, send everyone, crowd that space. I feel good about the different looks I can go to with Tatum, especially with Steph and Magic on the team, who are 2 of the best playmakers ever, best offensive creators ever. Now I'm in another weird spot. I think I could still use some wing defenders. I could still use some shooters. I could even use some secondary playmaking. And I'm trying to get a read on all of you guys because I don't know where you're going to go with this. And I kind of want to like, everyone's kind of built out their identity right now. So if I really think about it, I can kind of predict. Like I know Marz isn't going to take an offensively slanted player at this point. It's just not going to happen. Well, I can probably wait those guys out a little bit. But then it's like, I don't know. Logan's in a position now where he needs some offensive guys, needs some shooters and some spacers. So I'm like, oh shoot, now I need to maybe draft a shooter. And that's where I'm going to go. Carson took Reggie Miller off the board. There's
Tyler,
2
don't
guys.
Don't do it to me, man.
I think I'm gonna leave the one that you want. I think the guy that you want is still gonna be there. I'm gonna take Klay Thompson. And I think you wanted the other guy. You wanted the guy that was more versatile offensively. I still need more point of attack defense. So I do think the other guy that Logan's planning to draft is a better player than Klay Thompson. I think specifically for the team that I have, with Steph and Draymond already, with the post-up play that I have, And then with the amount of defense that I need to insulate some of these guys that I'm drafting, I think Klay Thompson's a perfect fit with my team. And I like that as a plug and play guy for sure in this type of all-time draft atmosphere.
Yeah, I'm not happy.
Tyler is just rebuilding the peak Golden State Warriors, and honestly, it's not a bad strategy.
I like it. With Hakeem Olajuwon in the middle. That's the goal here. And Magic Johnson setting up plays.
Marz?
That was going to be my next pick for my identity. It gets tough now. It gets really tough. Does it get tough? Not really.
Marz.
I'm going to go with someone who I think is just drastically underrated historically. And that's John Havlicek.
Yeah. Good
I
pick.
think he is another one who fits the identity. Really good defender. Someone whose offensive capabilities get drastically understated. Someone who is a really good passer, really good scorer, good jump shooter. Overall, didn't really have many holes in his game. And I think, unfortunately, he only seems to be known, he has 8 rings. He has more rings than Michael Jordan. But, like, he is a really, really good player. I think on the wings as someone who is, especially off the ball, a really smart defender, really timely in his rotations, really good hands. I'm building out a team that pretty much all my players have the same strengths. Like, I'm pretty much saying the same things about everyone. But this guy's white. So,
True.
That's different.
And he played in the 60s and 70s.
He did, yeah. The last 2 picks, I've gone all the way back 50 years. Shout out to Chilltown.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think John Havlicek is drastically underrated historically. One of the great small forwards. I know his longevity is probably better than his peak, but I still do think at his peak he was one of the best players in the sport. One of the most versatile players in the sport who could play on and off ball, could be a point forward for you, but could also play off of other people. And I think that flexibility is something that my team is really going to value. So I'm going to go with John Havlicek.
It's a great pick. I mean, I wanted Hondo, not with this pick, but maybe with the next one. He's another guy. When we talk about Barry and Baylor, like I think actually all time, those 3 guys are super close. And in this draft, it's kind of what do you want for your team? I think that Barry's the better offensive player, but Hondo is clearly the better defensive player. And also, like Hondo's peak, you look at 70 to 72. I mean, this is a guy who could average 27, 8, and 7 for you. The efficiency was not very good, but while bringing that elite defense. So he is underrated. I'm kind of glad you took him because I was going to feel like I had to take him at some point, and I know that when we post the graphic of these picks, people are going to underrate my team because I do have a lot of old dudes on it already. That being said, I'm going to take another old dude. Not quite as old as John Havlicek, but I'm taking Bill Walton here. I just think the value's too good. Walton to me is a top 20 peak of all time. And yeah, the center position is loaded, but I'm getting him in the 10th round. I just think this is a guy who can absolutely beautifully complement AD at the 4 with Walton at the 5. Just like such a great all-around two-way center. One of the best passing bigs we've ever seen. A guy who was a legitimate, awesome offensive hub. And then also one of the best defensive anchors that we've seen in league history. This is a guy who, if you look at his 2 peak seasons when he was healthy, it's not just that he's averaging 19, 14, 4.5, 3 blocks a game. Like that somehow still understates his value. If you look at those 2 seasons, the Blazers were 92 and 31 with him. They won the title. Then they started the next year 50 and 10. And they were 15 and 26 without him. Like that's one of the craziest with or without you differentials you'll ever see. And so I do think that he's such a complete and versatile and phenomenal two-way player. Defensively, maybe not as versatile, but I think he's just such an elite anchor at the 5. That's the spot that I'm going to put him at. And yeah, just too good to pass up on here. And I can use a true backup center. So now I feel great because even though Wilt is amazing, he's an all-time force, I did want to have some different looks at the 5, and now I think I have them with AD and Walton.
Oh, you definitely do. I mean, Walton's got such a great all-around skill set, as a rim protector, as a finisher, as a playmaker, as a defender. Criminally underrated. I look at my team at this point in the draft, and I still feel like I'm short on legitimate lead ball handlers. So I'm going to go back to the well here with a different guy, a guy that I didn't choose in the PCL tournament got me bounced. So I'm going to go with the guy that bounced me from the PCL. That's Gary Payton. Gary, I think, is an underrated. Obviously is one of the greatest defensive guards of all time, but I think is underrated as an offensive engine. Basically, led out a top 5 to top 10 offense every single year with Seattle in the 1990s. And again, I'm looking at my roster when I've got a guy like Jokic, when I've got points. I don't want to have any really exploitable pieces outside of one guy where I think we can make up for. And Gary certainly isn't exploitable positionally. And again, it's a position that I really need. So I'm going to take Peyton here because I think it's my biggest position of need right now. And with my next pick, like Tyler alluded to, I really need that release valve. I really need that off-ball shooter. I'm glad he left him on the table. I'm going to take Ray Allen, another underrated Sonic in my opinion. You guys are talking about Reggie Miller and being criminally underrated in the 90s. Ray is one of those really underrated offensive engines, and maybe he's not an elite defender. Might be one of the guys that gets picked on. I feel like you can make some of those. I can concede that a little bit. I got a ton of athleticism down the rest of my roster. I got a ton of defense. I really need some shooting, and Ray's really underrated as an all-time offensive player too. And don't forget, I feel like when guys get old, in like our era, people remember Ray as, in Boston, or people remember Ray in Miami as just a straight up spot up shooter. Man, Ray had bounce and Ray had creation off the dribble too. You can't understate that. I don't know if that's going to be his role on my team with all these other great offensive players, but he's going to do his thing offensively. So I think Ray's a good value add here in the 40s.
Yeah. I was considering waiting to just get Ray as a diet Reggie. I think that he's worthy of going in this draft just because his archetype is so unique. And I am a big Ray believer. I think that he did lead out some of the best offenses. If you look at his time with Milwaukee and then Seattle in the early 2000s, he led out a number of top 5 offenses that gets underrated. Also has that gravity and very good scoring efficiency and elite off-ball value. I'm going to take a guy now who I just can't believe is still here. I'm taking Dirk Nowitzki. I just think the talent is once again too good. Yeah. Well, get fucked, Marz, because I'm taking Dirk. He's on my team now. Also, he doesn't fit your identity, so he wouldn't.
I was going to go against my identity for Dirk.
Yeah, the talent there is definitely good enough to justify even the Marz team going against their identity. Dirk is one of the best offensive players ever, and he's such a unique offensive player as well. But when I think about mid-2000s Dirk, obviously, you think of him as one of the greatest jump shooting bigs ever. I would say the greatest jump shooting big ever. Maybe not the greatest three-point shooting just because we've seen more volume, although he was a career 38% three-point shooter. But guys just do more from beyond the arc now. But the mid-range plus three-point shooting combo was just absolutely ridiculous. But also the agility, the physicality at 7 feet tall. Like, he was the best isolationist of that era. Just ridiculous efficiency and production year over year over year. He can kill you out of the mid post. He can kill you as an off-ball scorer and just totally stresses the defense relentlessly. Also got to the line at a crazy rate in those years. So even though he doesn't have like the conventional all-time great offensive player profile of either like 30 plus point per game scoring or 8 plus assists per game, like he doesn't have that sort of raw production. But every single year, the Mavs were one of the best offenses in the league. And that lasted well past Nash's departure. They let out the number 1 offense in basketball in 2006 once Nash was already gone. And like that was because of Dirk. So I love it. I just think the offensive value is too good here. I think he's another guy who gives me a versatile look at the 4. I can go more offensively slanted. And he fits with everybody. He's just going to make any offensive lineup better. So I love it. And defensively, at least he's got size. And the version of Dirk that I'm taking is a little bit more athletic than the early 2010s, very slow Dirk that you might think of.
I was going to break the identity. I guess it wasn't meant to be.
I'm sorry, Marz.
See, now I'm stuck because I didn't think Dirk. I thought Dirk was just staying off the list for so long that he just wasn't going to make it.
There's some guys that I'm really surprised are still on the board here, though.
It is interesting. I mean, there's some great talents, but I can kind of see why everybody who's fallen has fallen, just because of like fit and roster needs.
There is a player I'm thinking that might be a bit of a rogue selection, but I'm looking at my team.
I will just say, KG going 6 and Dirk going 42, that's crazy in this draft. And like, I obviously would have taken KG higher, but that gap is nuts.
I was gonna have both on my team, man. I mean, there's only 2 picks left. Yeah, I'm taking Manu Ginobili.
I like it.
He is one of my individual goats. I think when we're talking about ability to play next to others, Manu has shown more than anyone his ability to scale up and scale down his role. I seen something on Twitter. I can't remember who said it. Manu was like, for a decade, he led the league in net rating or something. It was a 10-year stretch, some period. And it makes sense. We're talking about a guy who was a hell of a defender, didn't get the respect he deserved for competing as hard as he did on defense, hustling after everything, being one of the smartest, best anticipators defensively, while being someone who could run pick and rolls for you, while also playing off the ball next to a guy like Tony Parker or Tim Duncan's post-ups. And everything he did was deliberate. It was never lethargic. I think that's a great word to describe it. Everything was with pace, trying to get downhill, trying to collapse the defense, trying to make something happen. And when you have the players I have on this team, with the attention they draw, you don't want someone who's going to catch the ball off a closeout and then survey the defense. That's not what you want. You want someone who's going to continue an advantage, who's going to be one of the best passers, who's going to make consistently great decisions. Now, occasionally, you're going to get some decisions that end up with the ball in the 4th row. You live with that because Manu Ginobili is someone who's able to make things happen. And he had a unique and modern shot diet. Didn't play in the mid-range a whole lot. Someone who was comfortable shooting step-back threes, comfortable getting to the rim, very crafty getting downhill, could draw fouls. I think he's just drastically underrated. So I'm going to take Manu Ginobili.
It's a fun pick.
That's a really good pick. Manu was someone I was heavily considering here. I think now that we're in the 11 and 12, and I can only really speak for myself, but I feel like this is kind of where everyone's head's at. Maybe not Logan, because Logan does have like very specific needs that he's addressing right now. But like for me, 11-12 is very much like, what kind of different look can you give me now from what I've already structured out? And I look at my team, I've got elite transition playmaking. I've got tons of off-ball shooting between Steph, Clay, Paul George, all these guys. I've got a bunch of athletic, defensive-minded wings with Tatum, George, McGrady, Wade, all those guys. I've got 2 of the best post-up players ever. I've got 2 of the best rim protectors ever. What I don't have is someone who can slow it down in the half court, spread pick and roll, pick you apart with all these shooters. I'm going to take Luka Doncic. Very specifically, 2023 Luka Doncic before the injury, when he had like the 73-point game, and that version of Luka where he still had the slashing and athleticism, had the pull-up 3 working at like a 38-39% clip, had the post-up game. That to me was just like maybe the most complete half-court playmaker we've ever seen. And I think getting him as my 11th man is just kind of an absolute, just like I couldn't be happier with that, because he can also play with all these other guys that I've built. I've kind of built a roster where like Luka can play serious minutes for me as my 11th guy, and then can even be my primary offensive guy in specific matchups. Like Marz, you get Shaq on the court, come on Luka, come on Steph, come on Clay, we're putting Shaq
KG
everywhere.
at the 5, yeah, problem solved.
Yep, and then we're dumping into the post. KG can't handle Hakeem in the post, man. Come on,
Sub in Joel.
sub in Joel. Then he's in the action, man. We don't care. We're running that.
Sub out Joel, throw in David Robinson. Problem
No,
solved.
that's a good one.
Mars is cooking. Mars
But hang
has the
on.
bigs, man.
Counters upon counters, man.
All I'm gonna say is 95 Western Conference Finals. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm doing. That's what I'm doing to that team. That's what I'm doing to that team. No, in all seriousness, I like Luka here, but now because I drafted Luka, I don't really have that 2-man game partner. Like, I don't view Kareem or Hakeem as either like the type of rim runner that I want playing next to Luka if we're gonna go to that spread pick and roll look.
DeAndre
So-
Ayton. Oh, God.
This is you dominating. Come on now. No, in all seriousness, my center board actually got marked off, like fully marked off. I had a board of centers that I was like looking at, and Dirk was the last guy that like I would consider to play the 5 that I took off my board once Carson picked them. So I had to go deep in the bag for this one. There were 3 guys I was considering. 2 of them are power forwards. Only one of them is a center, and I'm gonna go with the center. Give me 2011 Dwight Howard as my 2-man partner with Luka Doncic and another anchored big on defense.
Is he going to want to set screens?
He is going
He'd
to
like
have
to play out of the post. If that's okay, he wants
And
to
if
actually
not,
just kind of be.
if not, we're gonna run Luka Draymond spread pick and roll. We're gonna put Dwight in the dunker. Catch some lobs, man.
And you're gonna have PG off of that and Clay off of that. That could be nasty.
Yep.
Or Steph,
That's
obviously.
dangerous on the wings. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Dwight was someone I considered, but I've got like 18 bigs in my 12 spots. Last pick. Who needs an identity, man? Steve Nash.
Ah,
Steve
damn.
Nash, welcome to the team. All-time great offensive engine. I can't sing his praises enough. I think he's one of the 5 best shooters ever, one of the 5 best passers ever. I think he's the only player in NBA history who can say that. Maybe Larry Bird, but not today, buddy. I think in the half court, one of the best decision makers, best passers we've ever seen. His ability to command pick and roll, find interior passes at a rate that we've never seen before. I have the best interior finisher of all time. Steve Nash, spoon feed him. That's all we need, spoon feed him. His ability to push pace is second to only maybe Magic Johnson, probably. And I've got guys who I know are willing to fill lanes and run the floor. And then if we do slow it down in the half court, we've got pick and roll, pick and pop with Joel Embiid. I understand he's the worst defender drafted by a significant margin. I have 11 defenders. If you can't be hidden, I don't know what to do. But yeah, I'm taking Steve Nash. He's too good offensively to pass up at this point.
What's funny is Carson specifically highlighted like me and you doing the Steve battle for Steve Nash. And what's funny is as soon as I drafted Magic Johnson, I knew there was 0 chance I was getting Steve Nash because that's the value you get with Steve Nash is what Magic Johnson's going to bring to my team.
He said
And
that,
then
and
you
I knew Steve Nash wasn't on my boards. I was like, I'm not going to
You
say
went-
Dude, I totally overhyped. He fell to the 3rd to last pick.
He went all defense. As soon as Marz started going all defense and I had Magic Johnson, I actually thought Steve Nash was going to go undrafted. And I thought it was going
couldn't
to be
do my goat like
I was gonna take him
hilarious.
next.
Okay. I was going to say, it'd be
Yeah.
so funny if Carson hyped up the Steve Nash battle and then he goes undrafted.
My plan was Dirk and Nash, but Dirk got taken. So then I went to Ginobili, and I was like, Nash will make it back to me.
I wanted him next because I think, like Tyler said, like at this point, I mean, we've already built out basically entire roster, so I'm not as focused on fit at this point. I'm just like, give me a monster who can give you a different look. Nash was going to be that. I mean, even though I have, again, like my on-ball all-time great playmaking point guard with Oscar, like there are differences with Nash being even better pushing pace, Nash being even more of like a selfless all-time great passer, specifically like an interior passer, spoon feeding the bigs. That would have been awesome. The all-time great jump shooting. I love Steve Nash, and I get that he fell this far because of the defense, but damn, he would have been a fun selection here. And Luka going in this round too, I think I'm just going to continue the theme. I think I'm going to take James Harden now. Like, I think just give me a guy who can at least get out there, and he could be the best offensive player on my team in a specific matchup, because you literally just may not be able to guard him. And if he is knocking down 40% of his step back threes and he's getting to the line, you know, with a free throw rate of like 0.5, well, then just good luck, man. That's what James Harden can do at his absolute best while he is being an absolute playmaking maestro. So maybe we won't go to him a lot just because he is probably the weakest defender on my team. Yeah, I would say that he is. And he is also somebody who demands that you play his style, right? Like you have to play Harden ball when he's on the floor, but we might throw 8 minutes of Harden ball at you and just go on a destructive run because he completely takes over the game in that stretch. And when I look at the other guys who are here, like, yeah, there are guys who can do that role player stuff, but I'm good, man. I think we have our bases covered there. I think at this point, I just want the potential game-breaking punch. Harden is the guy left on the board who can bring me that. So it goes to you, Logan.
Last pick of the draft, I am conflicted between 2 players who overlapped. I don't feel like I need any more athleticism. I don't feel like I need any more guards. I'll let you guys in. I'm debating between Moses Malone here as another look at the 5 spot to get boards with all these great big men, and then the other guy I'm looking at is Charles Barkley, just because I look at my like wing spots and my 4 spots, and
Take Chubb.
I feel like he brings me a different look than
Charles Barkley or Andre Drummond?
fuck you,
I will
Marz.
say-
That's disrespectful as hell, man. Don't disrespect Virginia legend
You
Moses
tore
Malone
Joel
like
Embiid's
that.
ACL.
Yeah, I got the call. I didn't make that call. It just happened.
Well, I know
yeah,
Andre Drummond, Moses Malone is
I-
backing up Joel Embiid next year. That's what I
I'm
think.
looking at Barkley. I was fully convinced, and I don't want to like put anything in your head and give you another pick, but I was fully convinced that Logan was setting this thing up to pick Anthony Edwards here. Like I fully was
his
convinced that
baby
Anthony
boy.
Edwards was the pick here.
His
Because I
baby
know he
boy.
likes Anthony Edwards a lot, and I look at his roster and I'm like, man, Anthony Edwards is like your Michael Jordan replacement off the deep off
48
the
minutes
bench.
of MJ.
Don't threaten him with a good time.
I'm gonna take Barkley here. I feel like Barkley's skill set's a little more irreplaceable, and I like my big core. You know, I got Duncan, I got Bill, I got Jokic, I got Giannis. We've got versatility. We've got different looks. It may not be super deep, but if we're not in injury land, I feel like Barkley gives me a look that's a little bit harder to replace, and I feel like he's probably the better player. But I do have a lot of love for Moses as a sentimental player. One of the best rebounders of all time, but I feel like Barkley's skill set's a little more rare, so I'll take Barkley here. Don't put him in Andre Drummond talks, man. That's just disrespectful, Marz.
No,
Come
he's
on.
not an Andre Drummond, so he's perfectly fine.
He was calling
Who do you
Moses.
guys-
Andre
Who do you
Drummond.
guys think is the biggest shock that didn't go? For me, it was probably going to be Harden if he didn't go in this draft.
I think
have-
the last round we did some cleanup work on talents who like clearly were of the caliber, but for their own reasons weren't like super appealing, just like fit stuff. Because you know, Barkley can be a little bit of a clunky fit, kind of on both sides of the ball with a team like this. And Luka, Harden, Nash, you have defensive questions with all of them. They need the ball in their hands a lot. But those were the last four guys who I was like, okay, you could argue these are like top 25 talents, and they've fallen into the 40s. Is there anybody who stands out to you guys who did end up not getting selected at all?
Yes. One actually pretty obvious one to me that like I am kind of mad I didn't pick myself. And maybe it's just because like this is one of those another one of those like big what if guys that kind of passes the mind, but Grant Hill to me was one who I definitely thought somebody was going to pick because that's like a 1 through 5 defender who could handle the ball and pass and slash. Like I understand the shooting concerns, but like Grant Hill, and then in that same kind of token, Jimmy Butler's another guy who I definitely thought somebody was going to pick. Because he's like, when we talk about stars who master the little things, I don't know if there's ever been one as good as Jimmy Butler in terms of off-ball movement, offensive rebounding, physicality on defense, off-ball defense. I think Jimmy is like the ideal plug-and-play kind of guy to go deep into your bench. And then from a talent perspective, Karl Malone's one that I thought somebody definitely would have picked.
Hell
Just wasn't
no.
gonna be
Tyler,
me.
you ain't have to give him the
Yeah,
shout
it
out.
wasn't
here,
gonna
bro.
be
It
me.
wasn't gonna be me. I'm just saying talent-wise.
If we had a 13th pick, maybe.
Wow.
Grant Hill, great shout. I'm gonna move right past that. That's a reference to the fact that Karl Malone. That's a reference to the fact that Karl Malone was the 13th pick in the 1985 NBA draft, guys. That's what Marz is saying right there. I really
Thank
thought
you,
about
Marz.
going with Grant
Thank you. I
Hill
needed
with my
that one,
last
man.
pick.
Trivia.
Grant
That
Hill,
was-
great shout.
I considered Penny Hardaway.
That's another guy I had on my board.
Okay,
Yep.
fun. Okay, let's
I
see.
consider
I
Who,
also had
Patrick Ewing.
Westbrook. I also had Westbrook on my board.
I thought
I
about
had
Dame, too.
Yeah, I was considering Dame, but like once Harden was still out there, I wasn't gonna take Dame because just the offense first guards kind of ended up falling a little bit. Who else? Gervin, I had on my board.
Yeah.
Clyde, I had on my board as kind of a great
Paul Pierce.
do-it-all
I had
wing.
Paul Pierce on my
I
board.
had
Paul
Paul
Pierce
Pierce
on
on
my
my board. I had
board.
James Worthy on my board too.
So
I
did
thought-
I.
I was wondering if somebody's going to take Rodman just with his unique value.
The
You
other
know
guy
who I had? This is
Who's
like the
that?
last guy. We've almost mentioned everybody who was on my board, except like center. I went kind of deep, but like I had Ewing and Zoe. I just knew I wasn't going to take those guys because the center talent's
Yeah.
too good. Sean Marion. I was like, if there's a do-it-all Swiss Army knife wing, I would have gone Grant Hill before him, but Sean Marion I think is probably like the least flashy all-time name who I did have on my board.
The other guy that I was going back and forth with for Dwight for like my pick and roll partner with Luca was Sean Kemp. That's one guy that I was really heavily considering. Lob threat, really automatic mid-range shooter and could defend almost every position. Sean Kemp was a guy that I was like, I'd really like him, but I think Dwight was just on another level defensively from Sean Kemp.
I had Wemby on my board.
Yeah, that's valid. Like he could definitely give you a
That is.
freaky look.
I had Wemby, so.
That is.
These guys were all towards the bottom, but I wrote down Powell, I wrote down Kevin McHale, and I thought about Clyde and D-Book too.
D-Book's a good one because he's a
Devin Booker,
nice
yeah,
plug-and-play
Devin
guy.
Booker
I also
was
had
one
Bobby
I was
Jones if I really needed a versatile defensive four.
That
Like
was-
Bobby,
But
or
you
like
got
Karolinko,
Draymond.
same kind of line of thinking.
Robert Covington.
Robert
Yeah, like
Covington,
sort of a
yeah.
Robert Covington type. Yeah. All right, let's read out our teams. Logan, read us off your roster, and then maybe just give us a little pitch on your identity, how you like your team, how it turned out, what you think your strengths are.
So I've got Jason Kidd, Gary Payton, Michael Jordan, Ray Allen, Kevin Durant, Dr. J, Elgin Baylor, Tim Duncan, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Charles Barkley, Bill Russell, and Nikola Jokic. I mean, I think the strength of my team is that I've got a lot of guys that can do a little bit of everything, but we don't have a ton of defensive weak points. I'd say the only real weak point defensively on our team is a Nikola Jokic. And I think I've got a lot of versatility. I think I have got a ton of lineup versatility and malleability. I think I can throw you a bunch of different looks. And again, I only think I have two real arguable weak points defensively, and that's Jokic and Ray Allen, but I think we did a really good job of building around those guys. I think if there's one weakness of my team, it would be like legitimate high-level floor spacing, where we don't have a ton of shooting on the roster, but I think that's my only weak point. All in all, I'm way happier with what I came away with in this draft compared to to last time.
I'm glad. I'm glad to hear it. Okay, my team, starting lineup, Jerry West, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Larry Bird, Wilt Chamberlain. Then off the bench, I have Oscar Robertson, Reggie Miller, Rick Barry, Anthony Davis, and Bill Walton, along with Dirk Nowitzki and James Harden. I think if you look at our starting five, we have a bunch of guys who are great on ball, but are really exceptional off ball, and I think that's where we set ourselves apart, just with that balance, the ability of everybody to scale alongside each other, really excel in a lineup that is so chock full of great talents. We've got a ton of athleticism. We're stingy defensively. We've got really good size, nobody who can be attacked defensively. And then you get into the bench, and that's where we really prioritize the versatility. We have our sort of ball-dominant offensive engine in an Oscar Robertson, but then we can also go to James Harden in that same role. We have another great playmaking, do-it-all scoring, all-time offensive wing in Rick Barry. We have our all-time great pure shooter off-ball weapon in Reggie Miller, and then we have some really different looks we can give you in terms of our bigs. We can have AD who can play at the 4 or the 5. He and Bill Walton together, killer look. We can go with Dirk alongside one of the centers, and now we've got a phenomenal offensive 4 alongside our great defensive anchors at the center. So I think we've built a very complete team here. I think we got a lot of different punches that we can throw, and I don't think that there's really any holes to poke. I think that we have an answer for everything, basically, that we could deal with at any point. Marz, what's your roster, and give us the pitch?
I have Chris Paul, Shea, Kawhi, KG, and Shaq. That's my starting 5, and I'm coming off the bench with Scottie Pippen, David Robinson, Joel Embiid, Walt Frazier, John Havlicek, Manu Ginobili, and Steve Nash. I think for 11 of those names, you can see the identity of my team. I am taking a leaf from NBA history's book of defense wins championships. And I have built a team that I think has no defensive weak points, bar one. And the one defensive weak point is one of the best offensive players of all time, in which I have already decided that my lineup with him on the court will be Steve Nash, Kawhi, Scottie Pippen, Kevin Garnett, and David Robinson. So try and attack him. I dare you. I love the playmaking I have with Chris Paul and Steve Nash and SGA scoring gravity and Shaq scoring gravity, with play finishers like David Robinson, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Garnett. Some of the connective stuff with Steve Nash, with Chris Paul, with Manu Ginobili, with Kevin Garnett, with Scottie Pippen. I just think my team does a whole lot of everything. And I have a bunch of high field guys, athletic guys who all compete on defense. And I think that's a recipe for success, along with having some of the best bigs in NBA history. I will at all times have one of the best bigs on the court. And I think that's a recipe for success.
Tyler.
So for my starting 5, I've got Steph Curry, Dwayne Wade, Paul George, Magic Johnson, and Hakeem Olajuwon. Off the bench, I've got Luka Doncic, Tracy McGrady, Jason Tatum, Draymond Green, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Klay Thompson, and Dwight Howard. I think going into this draft, my goal was lineup flexibility, and I think that's kind of the superpower of my team. Like I said, I'm planning to do stagger minutes, so I think one of my main staggers will be like Steph, Wade, Paul George, Draymond, and Hakeem. You get the greatest shooter ever. You get Draymond, his running man for over a decade. You get one of the best post scorers and rim protectors ever, with 2 elite wing scoring options who can also defend. I think my other stagger is going to be like Magic and Kareem, and then take your pick of wings who can play off of those guys. I've got Klay, I've got T-Mac, I've got Tatum, I've got Paul George and Wade, like I mentioned. But my other, I think, underrated variable is I've got two other like really interesting lineups I can throw at you that kind of are just like dependent on what matchup I'm going up against. I can go Luka, Dwight, spread pick and roll type of offense with, again, take your pick of versatile defenders. I can go Draymond at the 4 if he wants to be the pick and roll partner with Luka. I can go Clay, Paul George, Thompson, all those, or I said Clay twice, but same thing. And then if I'm being picked on defensively between Steph, Luka, and Magic, because those are three of my weaker defenders, I can go to a Dwayne Wade centric offense where we gonna get like a '06 Heat kind of look where Wade and Shaq are like the two man, but it's gonna be Wade and Olajuwon with the post up and slashing, and then who's scoring on a defensive lineup of Wade, Clay, Paul George, Tatum, and Hakeem? Like that's just insane to me. So I guess my selling point would be I have a bunch of different looks I can throw at you on offense. I've got a bunch of different looks at you I can throw it on defense. I can go small. I can go big with double big. I can surround all these guys with shooters. And I just think versatility is the name of the game when we talk about this type of conversation. And I feel like my team covers all bases.
Yeah. I think Tyler built a very interesting team. I think you built the most modern team for sure, which makes sense when it comes to like prioritizing flexibility, versatility, just because that's kind of inherently more prevalent in today's game.
I will say, not to cut you off, but
Yeah.
my head immediately in these all-time draft goes to like, okay, we're playing a game in 2025.
Right.
Like who can, that's just automatically where my head goes to. So that's why I get like the Steph, the Draymond, the Matt, like all
Which
these
is very
guys
fair.
that just translate.
Very fair. And I like how you have your anchors of like, okay, all-time big, all-time offensive engine guard, and then just like a shit ton of wings around them. Like, I think you probably took more wings than anybody else. Like your bench draft, your first 5 picks off the bench were T-Mac, Draymond, Paul George, Tatum, Clay, who are basically all wings. You know, Draymond's a Draymond, but like they all sort of have that.
And I didn't really need a backup point guard because I have Magic as my starting 4. So I was like, he's going to be my backup point guard.
Yeah. It's a nice team. I think we got a lot of nice teams. I think Marz built a hell of a defensive juggernaut, got a lot of picks who I was jealous of. I'm very happy with how my team turned out, too. I think that, Logan, you've got some great size. You've got some great athletes. I think everybody cooked. I think everybody put together a nice team. I think there's no polar bears in Arlington, Texas here, so to speak. So we'll put it to the people. The people can tell us who they think put together the best team, and that'll be very interesting to see. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on. Are there any last words, any thoughts on the draft, anything you want to get off your chest before we plug you and let you go?
No, I think I'm good.
Beautiful. Marz?
Joel Embiid shall not be disrespected, man. Joel Embiid shall not be disrespected.
Embiid. I was very shocked that when you picked Embiid, because it was right after you got David Robinson. And I was like, I was not expecting that at all.
No, Marz was not afraid to go after the
them.
bigs.
Yeah. I've ended up drafting. I drafted 3 centers.
I respect the
Embiid got drafted,
Carson
period, bro.
Carson said before the draft, he was like, center is so stacked. So Marz was like, well, I'm going to make sure I have.
I want to dominate the center minutes. Yeah, I want to dominate the center.
Yeah, exactly.
Minutes.
And that might be a recipe. Like, that's not a bad idea.
I think you have to have at least like 3 legit center looks with these. There's just too many great centers. And I think you want to be versatile there. You want to get different looks. I think you accomplished that, Marz. I think you have pretty different centers. You also could go KG at the 5. You could.
I dare Tyler to go Draymond at the 5.
I think Logan has the most interesting big looks though, because he can go he can go Jokic at the 5, he can go Bill at the 5, he can go Tim Duncan at the 5, he can go Giannis at the 5.
Logan has 4 7-footers in his starting lineup.
And they all have completely different skill sets.
Yeah. That size is ridiculous. This is fun. This was such a fun exercise.
I will say Logan's team scares me a little bit matching up defensively because I do kind of rely on like smaller like if I have Magic and Hakeem at the 4 and 5, it's like, okay, who the heck is guarding Giannis?
Yeah, the thing that I think is going to kill Logan is he probably needs Ray Allen to play a little more than he would like, just because the shooting is not there. Otherwise,
we just gonna rock with it. KD is gonna be spraying, man.
He's going for the Rockets.
You need KD taking 12.
KD ain't trying to shoot high volume threes.
I need
man.
KD and Jokic on the perimeter, man.
They both love scoring inside the arc too much, I fear. I think that would be your one limitation and your downfall. But this was a ton of fun. Thank you guys for coming on. Everybody go support, obviously, Marz. Go check out the Hoop Talk podcast that he does. Go check out Player's Choice. Go check out the panel where he talks for 3 hours every day with those fellas. And, of course, go support Tyler at Hoop Venue. Go check out the Hoop Venue podcast, but go also check out all of the great video breakdowns that he does on YouTube. And you guys can also support us. You know, we're going to be doing more all-time stuff throughout the summer. We're going to be doing some more trivia stuff, which maybe we'll bring you guys back for some of that. That could definitely be fun. So stay tuned in for all that on our YouTube channel, across our socials. And you can listen to the pod across all audio platforms if you want to do that as well. So with that, as always, appreciate you guys. One last shout out to Marz and Tyler. I've been Carson Brabber.
I have been Logan Camden.
Let it rip, fellas. Just let it rip.
I have been Tyler Britton from Hoop Venue.
I have been Marz.
And this was Nerd Sesh.